So yeah, before we start, I want to say that this webinar will be recorded and we will upload it to um, our YouTube channel, Global International Engagement YouTube channel. I will put the link in the discussion board. And let me introduce myself. My name is Suliani Jati. I am an international student in the School of Education. I am a third-year PhD student studying education policy right now. I'm also a program assistant in the Global and International Engagement Initiative under the School of Education. Good to see you all today. And today's webinar, we have two objectives. Andy here, he's going to introduce the key platforms, search engines, and other useful resources available for identifying international jobs. And our wonderful School of Education alumni panel, they will share their life experience developing their international career. So this webinar, the format of this webinar is a 30 to 40 minutes conversation between our guests, and we have a 20 minutes Q&A session. You can post your question anytime in the Q&A session. If you check the little screen, and you can find a conversation bubbles under there, and you can post your question there anytime, and we will answer your question during the Q&A session. Yes, without further ado, our guest, can you introduce yourself? Where are you right now, and what work are you doing? Let's start from Andy.
Hi, nice to meet everybody. As Celia mentioned, my name is Andy Bosk, and I'm the Director of Career Connections here at the School of Education in IU Bloomington.
Alex, do you want to go next?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alex Lopez. I am currently the Associate Director of Market Engagement with the IU Alumni Association, but I'm here today to talk to you about my Peace Corps experience when I served in Uganda.
Thank you, Alex. And then we have Lana.
Okay, so I'm Glenda. I am currently in Singapore, which is why it looks kind of dark right now. It's also 9 o'clock like in China. I've been teaching 18 years, so happy to talk to you about my experiences overseas. 18 years overseas. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Glenda. Lana?
Hi, I'm Lona Robertson, and I'm a global learning advisor, which is basically an instructional designer, and I work on global projects.
Good to see you all today. And now we will let Andy to share with us some useful resources, and then we'll go into a conversation with our alumni panel. Andy, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I will go ahead and share my screen here. So hopefully you can see my slides here. Gotta move that, sorry. So as I mentioned, I'm the Director of Career Connections, which basically means I manage career services for the School of Education. And I wanted to hit on some of our core services first. May not apply to everyone listening, but just so you get a better idea of what Career Connections is about. We have a wonderful workshop series that includes events like today, both in person and online, especially throughout the academic year. We have lots and lots of events featuring prominent alumni and employer K-12 representatives. And it's a great chance to get together and learn more about topics that are pertinent to the world of education and careers. We also do one-on-one career coaching appointments. So in my opinion, that's probably the best way that we can help most people is by sitting down and having a one-on-one conversation. We got some great staff that are ready and excited to do that. Career courses, we have some nice courses so you can not only learn about how to feel more career ready in education, but also get credit for doing so. I'll talk a little bit more about Handshake. Perhaps you've heard of Handshake. That is a career services platform that's shared by colleges and universities across the country and internationally, and particularly the job board I'll be touching on in a moment. And then our website, you can reach at edcareers.indiana.edu. So particular job search resources that I want to share with you all. We have a Career Connections job search guidebook that we actually wrote last summer. And on page 33, we hit on some resources for international employment. You can see some of those on this list. You may be familiar with things like Going Global, obviously the Peace Corps JET program, and there are some other great resources. These are, for the most part, taken from the American Association for Employment and Education's 2021 Job Search Handbook for Educators, which we are a member of. So if you are a student at IU, you can take advantage of some of these resources provided by AAE, as we call them. So we have added those to our list in our guidebook. I'll go ahead and take us to our website. So you can see upcoming events. This is right now, starting a career overseas. But a lot of our best resources are on the Find a Job page. And one of the very first things is the resource I just mentioned, that guidebook that's 30 to 40 pages long. And we do have the one page that focuses on those international job search resources. And then I mentioned AAE. We actually have electronic copies of their handbook, their job search handbook, available for students who take one of our courses. And that course is EDUCM 202, Job Search Strategies. We offer that every semester, and it's online. And if you're student teaching, it's actually, I believe, unless they've changed it, the only class that you can take simultaneously while you are student teaching. So if you take M202, you do get access to not only our handbook, which all students can access on the web, but also the AAE Job Search Handbook. And then I mentioned Handshake before. This is a great place to not only RSVP for events or request an appointment with one of our career coaches, but it also has a very substantial job board. And so I will show you a glimpse of that. If you're on the main Handshake page, this is after you've already entered your IU credentials. Go to jobs. And then just filter away location. You can search for China. And I get like 44 jobs right now. And so obviously you can use additional filters, part-time, full-time, and other things, remote, on-site, to find jobs that you would specifically be interested in. So can't say enough good things about Handshake and the amount of career opportunities that you can find there. And then IU has these things called global gateways, and that is not to be confused with global gateways for teachers, which is housed in the School of Education and is a wonderful program for students who want to student teach overseas. But IU has global gateways actually located in different countries around the world. And if we take a look at their website, Bangkok, China, Europe, India, Mexico. And so these are great resources if you're in those countries and located proximally to these places, to these offices, I should say. They offer some space for hosting workshops, conferences, meetings. They have staff to share advice, connections, provide logistical support, and they say they have expert knowledge and contacts to help develop and support research, curricular programs, and other initiatives. So if you happen to find yourselves in one of those countries and you're able to make it to one of the global gateways, maybe check them out and see what they have to offer. And then the last resource I wanted to share is the IU Alumni Association's virtual alumni network. IU is truly a global community, and our university reaches all across the world. And the IUAA aims to help alumni feel connected, especially when they're so far away from Wilmington. So just keep in mind, after you've graduated, come back to the IUAA's website, sign into the virtual alumni network, make your account, and start connecting with other alums. And so these are the main resources that I wanted to share with you all. As I mentioned at the outset, I do think the best way we can help is sitting down with you one-on-one to talk about your specific situation and what you are looking for. And we're happy to have that conversation. If you want to request a career coaching appointment with us in Handshake, we are available during the summer and year-round. And thank you, Celia, for offering me a few moments to share our resources. And it's always a pleasure to work with the Office of Global International Engagement. I will stop my share now.
Thank you, Andy. These are very useful resources. So where can students find you if they need advising session?
Sure. I am in Suite 1000. I should say we are in Suite 1000 in the School of Education, first floor. If you are, I'll actually go ahead and I'm going to share my screen one more time. The easiest and quickest way to meet with us is if you're in Handshake, which is just join Handshake, I think .indiana.edu is the correct way to log in. You can get there right from my website by clicking on Handshake here. But if you're already there, I don't love the terminology, but if you click on Career Center over here on the left-hand menu, and then you can click on Appointments right here, schedule a new appointment, and then you'll be prompted to choose your school. So if you are a School of Education student, please choose School of Education Career Connections. If you're here from a different school, your school will be listed here, whether you're Luddy or Kelly, School of Public Health, O'Neill. So just choose the school that is right for you, and then you'll be able to select an appointment time with one of our staff members. Yes, so thank you for asking. You can also walk into Suite 1000 if you're around, and we will probably still have you create the appointment and handshake. But we're happy to say hi.
Thanks, Sandy. Thank you. Now let's move on to our School of Education alumni panel. Alexandria, Lana, and Glenda, we'd like to hear your story. What about we start from the work you have done after graduation, the job you're doing overseas? We can talk about that shortly. And I know you have some amazing photos to show us for slides. So please, want to go first?
I can go. Okay, so I'm Glenda. I'm the one that's in Singapore. So when I graduated, I moved to California and I taught there for a few years in Long Beach, just to like build up some teaching experience. And then I decided I wanted to move overseas. Didn't really know what I was doing at all, but I found like a company that helped to place me at a school in Shanghai. Originally, I thought I was going to end up in South America, and somehow I ended up in China. And I kind of randomly chose Shanghai. I was like, they went, where are you going to go, Beijing or Shanghai? And I went, Shanghai is closer to like more countries in the South. I think I'll just go to that one. And that's as much thought as I put into it, because I was 25, and I just wanted to go and like explore the world and like be close to other countries. So that's how I started my journey, is like being 25, having taught 3 years. I got a sabbatical for a year from my school district, and they said they would place me back in my school after 1 year if I came back. And then I just decided never to come back. That's the beginning of my story. Yeah.
Now you're working in Canada, right?
Me? No, I'm in Singapore, but like my journey, like it's 18 years, so it was a long journey. So like I'm an English teacher. Like I got my degree in English education for secondary school. So I started out in a Shanghainese middle school that taught international baccalaureate, and they were the first Chinese language IB school in the world. So that was my intro to the IB. They just kind of handed me a guide and were like, read this and teach the IB. I was like, I don't know what this is. I've only taught American curriculum, but it was fascinating. And I learned a lot about Chinese culture teaching at a Chinese school, because I was the only foreigner. So that was interesting. And then I moved to the Singapore International School in Shanghai after that. So I switched over to English Language A, and I taught English and Humanities for a year. And then I moved to Istanbul after that, and I taught at a Turkish school for a little while. And that was interesting. So living in Istanbul, I got to live on like the Asian side, and then I moved over to the European side. Then after that, I moved back to China for a while to Suzhou to be with my boyfriend. And then I moved to Hong Kong after that for 6 years. And then I've been in Singapore for 6 years too. So I've had like a long a lot of movement.
Oh, you've been to a lot of places.
Yeah, and traveled a lot while I've lived in these places. That's the benefit of teaching overseas, is like you can place yourself like near a bunch of other countries, and then every time you have a school holiday, you just like go on holiday. Like none of the teachers are in Singapore anymore. We went on holiday on Friday and they're all gone. Like there's like nobody left in Singapore. So, so they're all like either in their home countries, or they're just like traveling around the world, like doing all these holidays. Like for me, I'm going to Paris on Thursday, and then I'm going to fly down to south of Spain, and then I'm going to hang out in Spain for a while. Then I'm going to go to Italy. So, and then I'm going to be in Malaysia with my kids later this summer. So I'll be in like Penang, which is really cool. But like, yeah, it's just the nice thing is like you can be near so many other cool countries. Like when I was in Istanbul, it was like a year, but I think I went to 5 different countries. It's like every holiday I was just somewhere else. So if you love traveling, like this is a really cool way to get to do it.
Wow.
And it pays like really well compared to American schools. So that's also a big bonus.
Great. I'm so jealous of
Yeah.
your experience. I want to go to places. I hope I can find a career like you after graduating. Yes. Alex, where are you and what are you doing after graduation?
Sure. So I actually am probably the only one here that did not do School of Education. I am a media school graduate, graduated back in 2015 with a concentration in foreign correspondence and newspaper writing. So that had started my interest in possibly living, working, studying abroad. While I was in undergrad, I did a reporting course on HIV and AIDS that took us to Uganda for a month. And then a year later, I did a week-long study abroad that took me to Japan to report on the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings, so like the after effects. And then after graduation, I got into some other jobs that were here in the States, and I was just like in the back of my mind, I was like, I think I do want to go abroad and work. And I was like looking at different resources and was able to get in touch with a friend who was going into the Peace Corps. And she was going to a country within South Africa called Lesotho to serve. And she had known about my experience in Uganda, and I constantly talked about it, and just like I had no exposure to Peace Corps quite yet because we didn't have a recruiter like IU's campus does now. Thankfully, I think I saw Vicky in the participants. But I had continued to ask my friend questions. I looked on social media for more information about like what it might be even serving as a person of color and a woman in another country. So I found Uganda. They had 3 different projects at the time. One was community health education, which is what I was going for. I was still very interested in HIV, AIDS, as well as malaria. And then they have a slew of other categories that they also educate the locals about. And then they also have a literacy project. So those volunteers will be working in elementary schools, and some of them at kind of like a college level. I think we may have only had 2 volunteers in the whole country that worked with like a more accelerated position with young adults that were all like teaching teachers essentially. And then there was also an agribusiness sector too, and I got to dabble in a bit of everything. But yeah, now I'm working with the Alumni Association at IU. We do have 2 folks on our team that are global teammates. So they go out to those global gateways. They do connect with alumni here and there that just like want to engage with one another again. So I still miss living abroad, but I also miss my family a lot too. So I definitely see myself going back abroad again and either working or volunteering somehow again someday in the future.
Nice, nice. Yeah. So I believe you have something that you want to share with us.
Did you want me to share? Or
Oh
are we
yeah,
going to share the presentation?
we can. Yes, you can
Oh,
introduce yourself first, and
are we sharing the presentation? Sorry, Alex. If you need, I don't know what order we're
Oh,
doing stuff, but
I
if you're
wasn't sure
sharing
if
your
we
photos
were.
now, yeah,
I
I don't
can
know
share
either.
my
Yeah, I don't
photos.
know what the.
Lona,
okay,
did you want to go ahead and do the question? I think we're just talking about how we got to work in our position now, and then we can go ahead with our slides, I think. Is that okay, Celia?
Have to. Yeah.
that'd be perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, good. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, and I'm going to apologize because I've had a very long career, as you can see by the silver hair. It's been I've been around for a while. But my I didn't is my story doesn't start post IU. I'm a graduate from the EDD program in instructional systems technology, and graduated a couple of years ago actually. But I worked all through it, and my career in international education started like a long time ago, over 30 years ago, maybe closer to 40 years ago. So basically, my first degree was in Japanese, actually. I was a language major. And then I was like, well, what am I going to do with that? So I got into teaching ESL. And my plan was to go overseas and teach, but I started a family quite young, so I wasn't able to do that. But I did, once they got a bit older, I was able to take my kids to spend a year in Honduras, and we taught at a bilingual school in Honduras for a year. Because I was teaching ESL, I've always been exposed to a lot of international, affairs, working with immigrants, refugees, international students, you name it. So I've done a lot of that. Then I became really interested once the internet became something. I became interested in exploring online learning. So way back in early 2000s, I started investigating how that would look like, what language learning would look like in an online environment. So I got my master's degree in distance education and started up my own online ESL program, but shifted from that and moved into instructional design. And then I'm working in Canada, by the way, right now, but I work currently working for international NGOs. So I'm acting as a consultant. But my path to get there was, I moved into distance education and became an instructional designer, worked for the local, our regional Polytechnic Institute and vocational college, and then landed this most recent, my dream job, I should say, in the water, sanitation, and hygiene sector, working for several, as I said, I'm consulting. So I'm working with an organization called Global Water Center, which is out of the States. I'm working with another organization here, whose headquarters is here in Calgary, actually, at the Center for Affordable Water and Sanitation Technologies. And I'm currently going to be starting a contract with Doctors Without Borders as well. So basically what I do is I design the training, but it allows me to, so I primarily work from here, but it allows me to travel to a variety of places. So with COST, or the Center for Affordable Water Sanitation Technologies, long name, called COST. I worked in Bangladesh with municipalities and a university there, governments, to work with the municipalities to implement citywide inclusive sanitation. I worked in Nepal on I was actually training trainers there. Primarily, that was my role, was to train the trainers on effective training strategies, techniques, learning theories, and that kind of thing. I worked with the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine to design training for a project called WASHM, which is how to design hygiene programs in a humanitarian emergency. That was another project. Currently working on a project I worked also in Ethiopia this year. This year I've been to Ghana and Ethiopia, working with a local charity or local NGO on water and sanitation. So providing, again, I was training trainers how to develop effective training. And in the Global Water Center, I'm working with them to design training for a water utility. So how to build a safe water culture within the water utility. And so another course that is being rolled out in India right now, which is solar powered water systems. So that's being rolled out in India. So I don't know that I'll go there, but I might. But I do actually like the mix. I get to stay here in my home and be with my family, and then I get to travel regularly, sometimes too often, but that's okay. So anyway, that's a little bit of my history.
Wow. Well, your story is a great example for us students to find our dream jobs. I always have the question that what job should I do? What's my dream job? What should I plan to reach my goal? But I think, yeah, you're starting from a language teacher and then moving forward to find the best job that the job that you enjoy. I think, yeah, I think many students will also have the questions about starting an international career, and they may be afraid of the very challenge. What are the challenges they will meet when they trying to start this career? So can you share with us what are the most challenging aspects of pursuing a work outside the US? Our panel.
Okay. For me, oh,
oh,
sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. So for me, I didn't find it was like that challenging, because once I found like a service to help me like get a placement, the part that I found most challenging was culture shock. So like once you actually get the job and you go to the country, like for me, I'd only been outside the US a couple times, like, and they were both in Europe. So I'd never been to Asia. I'd never been, to China, all these places that were totally new to me. And I was just kind of thrown into it. So it was, it took me a while to like adapt to the new culture and to find my place in it. So I find that that's, and I gave away all my stuff. So I moved to China with just like a suitcase, and I had nothing. It was just like all God. So just like starting over in a new country with like a suitcase is like a really weird experience. So I still remember like when I first touched down in Shanghai, and I got into this like really cruddy hotel room. I just went, what did I do? Like, I was like, why did I do this? It's like, so, but then by the end of the year, I made friends from all around the world, and I was having all these amazing experiences and all these amazing trips, and like I was learning so much. Like it was good, but it was so hard at the beginning. Like the culture shock is the hardest thing. So once you get that job, it's great, but you just need to kind of realize that you're going to have a lot of ups and downs in that first year, and then you become like an old hat at it, because you just move around all the time. So like you're more used to it when you move after the first. I think that's my experience. I don't know others.
You're brave with one suitcase.
Actually, I'm going to just, I'll
Well,
jump in, Glenda, because I had the exact same experience. My first year when I went to Honduras, I got there. You have to also be prepared that what you think you're getting is not necessarily what you're getting. And I was always an adult educator, but I did teach high school for 6 years. So I've always been far better with the older groups. And I landed in the town, and they said, "Oh, the job you were going to have, we gave it to somebody else. So you are going to now teach elementary school." And I was like, "I don't do kids. That is not my thing. I can deal with attitude in high school, but I cannot handle. I don't know how to keep them in their seats, right?" So I thought, okay, I told them, I was like, you know what? I uprooted my kids. I took a leave of absence. I don't, I'm going to go home. I'm going to think about it because I was like, anyway, so I slept on it overnight, and I'm like, I'm here. I mean, how bad can it be? Right? I soon discovered it was worse than I could have imagined. But I stuck with it. Like I had many nights of tears, and I was ready to leave, but I got switched to do the high school. Long story, but anyways, I ended up getting switched, and in the end, as you said, everything turned around by the end of the year. And had I stayed another year, it would have been easier. I would have, known better what to do. But I guess the moral of that story being, persevere. It's challenging. It was interesting because I met a teacher. She lived literally 20 minutes from me, and I met her at the LA airport. And she was going to Honduras as well, but teaching in another city, and she didn't last more than a couple of months. She turned around and went back. So I was glad that I put in the full school year. It would have been easier the following year. Stick with it. So that may be some advice.
Yeah, I was actually sent to a village outside of Shanghai for 3 weeks when I first arrived in China. And it was like me, this Ukrainian lady, and a South African man. And we had to train Chinese teachers on Western methodology, and like half them couldn't speak English, but apparently they were all English teachers. So and it was such like an experience, like, because I was 25 and I was like, what am I doing? So we had to set up all this curriculum to teach Chinese teachers. And like they would cheat and like copy each other's homework. And sometimes they would just light up cigarettes in the middle of the class and then like get on their phones. So I was like, what is happening? Because like I was so used to American, goody goodies. And like, so for me, I dealt with that. And then I went to Shanghai after 3 weeks and I had to train Chinese police officers who were going on this trip to Australia. So I was like doing that for a while before I actually started at this middle school, this Shanghainese like private school. So I had so many weird things going on, like was just thrown into it. And like, but I think you know, sometimes like a little bit of a challenge is a good thing. And like you get so much from those experiences that it's just all worth it in the end. Yeah. It's funny.
Sure. And I would say the most challenging thing for me, I had an experience during my study abroad in Uganda. I was interning with a local newspaper, and I would just say the work ethic sometimes. US, I think culture for work ethic is very like, you know, you get there, you're doing things until you leave, sometimes even before or after hours. And then when in my time in Uganda in the Peace Corps and during study abroad, everyone was just like, oh, we'll get to it. Like the work isn't going anywhere. So I just like slowing down was my big lesson during that time. And then also language and just like cultural differences too. I am biracial, half Black and half Mexican. And so a lot of folks were really interested about my background. And so I would continue teaching, you know, just about myself also in my Peace Corps experience. And then the time frame, I knew so Peace Corps service is 27 months. 3 of those are intensive training. And it was just hard to intake all of that information sometimes, and also miss my family and not, you know, be on completely different schedule. So it did take time. I persevered. I like created a schedule. I made plans, like was intentional with my friends, family, loved ones back home, just to like keep in contact with them, because I knew going in that would be the most difficult thing for me, just because I'm so family oriented. But it ended up being great, and I was unfortunately evacuated because of COVID, so none of my friends and family were able to eventually visit me. But it was great, like culture sharing and everything, even online on social media.
I guess the culture shock and homesickness are the two biggest challenges, but we all know that everything will turn out perfectly at the end, right? So yeah, I'm curious, like, during your journey of building up your career, international career, what resources did you use to get these information, either about the country you'll go to or the job you're doing, informal or formal resources? What would be the most helpful way to get these information?
Okay, I'll start again. So for me, when I started out, I just kind of randomly did a search about like, you know, teacher exchange programs. I didn't know what to search for. So that's why I found like this company that helped me. But then my first international school, like proper international school, was through word of mouth. So I actually had a friend, and then she knew somebody at the school. So she got me the interview. So that was great. Doesn't happen all the time. And then I found out about ISS, which was mentioned earlier, and they have job fairs around the world. I haven't used them, but I've like researched their platform quite a bit. I use Search Associates, which is the same kind of philosophy where like you have to input all your information. You have like a billion references, like the schools know everything about you when they finally actually meet you and to do an interview. So for most of my jobs, I have gotten them through Search Associates at job fairs. So I did one for this job I have now, I got it in Bangkok. So I was in Bangkok, I was 7 months pregnant, and I did like a billion interviews, and I got 4 job offers on the same day. And I had to decide in 24 hours, like which one I was going to take. It was crazy. And then the one previously for Hong Kong, I was in Toronto during like Chinese New Year, because I was actually living in China at the time. And for that one, that was during the Egyptian Revolution. So we didn't actually know like which country we should be going for at the time. So this is another problem you have with international life, is you don't know if the country is going to go into a war or like, you know, have a revolution. So trying to decide carefully about like which country you want to settle down in is always going to be a thing. Like I was going to get a job in Jordan, and like luckily she'd hired somebody right before our interview, and that could have been bad. But I have a friend who just lost a job in Sudan that she was going to like run a school and like can't do it now. So like just trying to like think about where do you want to be, and like in terms of safety as a factor. And then once you start building up your experience overseas, you're going to start building like a network of past colleagues. So like you keep in touch with everybody you've ever worked with. And then when you're ready to move on, you contact them and you're like, hey, tell me about the schools and such, and they will put you in touch with their principals. And then you have like a hookup. And that's always a great way to get a job once you start building up your connections professionally. So I recommend like make a lot of friends and keep those contacts coming. Yeah. For teachers, yeah.
Lana?
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm pretty much, well, I started before the internet, so it was all word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Yeah, word of mouth. And I did find my most recent, well, no, not the most recent one, but I did find the job, my dream job. I found my dream job on a job board. But one thing that was interesting there was they wanted somebody that could design online training, but what they were asking for was a master's degree in environmental science, which I didn't have. But everything else they described was what I could do. So I didn't let that hold me back. I applied anyway, and I got the job. So, don't restrict yourself. I mean, obviously they're not going to take you if you have no idea what you're doing and what they're looking for, but don't let the descriptors necessarily hold you back, because they may be, if you can show that or you've got the experience that they want, they may be willing to open up their hiring criteria. So that was one thing that I found. But since that time, I just get offers coming to me. Like it's the network thing. LinkedIn, sort of to build on what Glenda was saying, like if you're on LinkedIn, and there's a lot of, I've actually gotten a job through LinkedIn actually too. Somebody posted something and I responded, and I ended up getting a contract through that as well. So LinkedIn is another opportunity, but staying engaged that way. It's definitely networking, I think, is the best way.
I would also agree, networking is key. It's literally what I do for my job now. But back in my Peace Corps experience, all of the Peace Corps staff, whether they were host country nationals, which is another name for locals, wherever you serve, and then even the American staff have great job experience. They work either like with the U.S. Embassy or USAID, depending on like what project or sector you're on over there. And then a lot of, Vicky would be actually best to ask, but there are also third-year opportunities with Peace Corps, which I was possibly pursuing, but COVID. I was either looking at a third-year opportunity. I didn't have the listing of what those opportunities were going to be quite yet, but typically they're more of an accelerated or more advanced position. So I was doing community health education, but capacity building for health workers specifically. So I was looking for more of an advanced role, and then also was interviewing with a local organization here in Indianapolis that builds schools in Uganda. It would have been a storytelling position. So with like education and journalism, it would have been like an awesome match, and it would have just been a year-long commitment, which I was hoping to do at least 3 years abroad. But yeah, staying plugged in, leaning on staff, going to any additional trainees, seminars, like sessions that you can attend to, and learning who those folks are in those spaces and following up with them afterwards is extremely important.
Yes, these are great ways to help you build an international career. And I think you all have some stories, the best memories of your career, and I know some of you prepared some photos to show us your experience. Do we want to start from Alex?
Yeah,
You want to
share some photos. Reminisce on my Peace Corps experience. No, I really did enjoy my time. It was one of the best things I've ever done, and also one of the most difficult things I've ever done. Again, it's a 27-month commitment. I knew I was not going to be visiting home because I was not financially stable during that time, so I made the best of it. Here I am with some of my language group. We were a big group of 14 people for the country. We had 5 different language groups. in my country at the time. But yeah, there's me at my close of service. Hopefully my things aren't in the way. But yes, like I said, community health education volunteer, that specific project had several things under it. Again, I was interested in HIV/AIDS and malaria. We also had water and hygiene sanitation. There was nutrition, and then I'm missing one. Sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head. But essentially, us volunteers would either facilitate or co-facilitate within it could be anything. It could be under a mango tree. We're leading discussions about health topics, or it could be in a clinic or a hospital or in front of a large audience. But there was also an education sector that focused on literacy. So they were teaching literacy to students in the primary range in Uganda, and then also agribusiness, which focused on either like advancing local small businesses or helping cultivate different farms at different organizations. I was with a Catholic organization. I'm not Catholic, but I was able to still, do my job efficiently there and volunteer. That is my large cohort. We had about 54 people all over the country. And so I got to make a lot of friends and see a lot of places. And then this is myself and my supervisor. He oversaw the Kabale Diocese Health Office, which had 27 different health centers and facilities in Southwest Uganda. And this is a visit. Gorgeous area. Like, I was in the most beautiful part of the country, I'd say. These are some of our agribusiness volunteers working on some income generating activities. So I think they're making jams and jellies here. Then here's my health team. We're working on making soaps. And this is at a training. So Peace Corps does a great job of training you up in different areas that you're interested in. There's a grassroots soccer training that a lot of volunteers would love to do. They take like some HIV/AIDS curriculum, and then also, I believe that one's HIV/AIDS. There's a few different trainings that you can do, but then also pair it with soccer because Ugandans love soccer. And then this is a game of sharks and minnows. Us health team, we were trying to teach students what I think Hillary there, the volunteer in the middle, she is, I think, a virus, and then all the children are white blood cells. So she was tagging them out, teaching them how your body, can, it'll be harder for it to fight over time. And then this is myself and another education volunteer. He had a literacy project at a local elementary school. I would walk over there frequently and do different things with that school, like reading to the kids. I also co-chaired on the last year for the National Drop Everything and Read Day. And so I was helping spearhead that event across the country. We're in the northern part of Uganda doing a malaria training. And then this is a cool effort through the US Embassy called the Nile River Explorer Bus. So they would bring this bus to different rural parts of Uganda, and they would have computers on the bus for teachers to learn how to like do simple things like save a document and like work in like the file drop thing, like basically file organization, things that may seem really easy to us, but sometimes a local school may only have one computer for the whole entire school. And then they would teach different kids about like STEM technology. So they were cutting some slides and like looking at things through like some really easy technology. And then they were just having a soccer game and decided to cheer me on. And then finally, here's some more of the health project. I was co-facilitating with one of my language teachers. I think I was able to, back in the day, to teach in the language. There were a few languages offered. Over time, I kind of lost it because my organization, I didn't really have to use it at for a lot of language speakers. And here we're doing some things on nutrition. Then here's that Drop Everything Read Day that I helped out with. That's my site mate, Isaac. He actually is going to be teaching soon in Somaliland, not an IU alum, but still really cool if you continue to tap into your resources. And finally, just some fun things for me.
Thank you, Alex. Oh, because of the time limits, I am going to ask a question from our audience first before you all share your story with us. So we have an audience asking that what are the prospects of securing an international job opportunity a few years after completing graduation? Can somebody answer the question?
I think it depends on like what your degree is in. Like for me, like I said, I was English education. So what I did is I taught a few years in California before I decided to go overseas. So I built up, a bit of, experience, so it would be a bit more marketable. What I would suggest, like now that I know what's out there and like what's what the teaching, what the international schools usually want, like the international baccalaureate is very, very popular overseas. So if you're an education major, I would suggest like trying to find IB schools in the United States, because if you can already say like, I have IB experience, they'll be like, oh, wow, okay. And then they're going to be more likely to hire you than somebody who doesn't have it, because then they have to send that person for training. It costs all this money. So it just kind of makes you more marketable when you decide to go overseas, if you've already started out in the IB curriculum in the States. So I didn't do that. Obviously, I still got a job, but you might end up with like a different experience for your first position if you have less international like curriculum experience for educators. Okay.
Does anyone else want to add to this?
I don't really have anything since I didn't continue international work. Sorry.
I think there's a lot of ESL jobs, but if you want to get paid well, you're better off to do like the international schools. Glenda probably knows a lot more about that than I do, but that's my understanding. And I mean, basically for a lot of the ESL jobs, if you speak English, they figure you can teach it, but they may not pay that well, and the conditions can be poor. So be careful what you accept.
Yeah, I could say for international schools, because I'm sure people don't realize this, you generally get housing as part of your salary. You get airfare once a year back to your home country. You get bonuses. Like in Hong Kong, I got like a 20% bonus, like after the second year. Like every year I would get like this massive amount of money that would just like show up my bank account. So huge bonuses just for like staying on, because they want to retain their teachers. You get moving allowances, and like that's for leaving and coming, like all these things. So you get health insurance, like they just give you so many great things that it's just a completely different experience from teaching back home. Like when I taught in Indianapolis, my school like didn't even have paper. Like we had donated fax paper, and then we used, this is a billion years ago, but like we actually like didn't even have like resources. So and in an international school, you just have so much available for you, and you have students from like 80 different countries and like staff from all these different places. So it's just such a really interesting experience with like high salaries. So you can save a lot of cash if you're smart about it.
Thank you, Lena, Lona. We have several minutes left. I think it's a great time to ask advice from you, from our alumni. So what advice would you give to all our undergraduate and graduate students who is thinking about moving outside of the US for an employment?
My advice would be, depending on where you're working, particularly if you're in development settings, make sure that there's I mean, Glenda sort of touched on it on the security part. Alex probably knows about that as well, but some places you might work are not safe. Healthcare is another thing that's likely you'll get sick, particularly in development settings. I pretty much get a bout of diarrhea every time I go somewhere, so expect that. So hopefully you'll be working for an organization that make sure you get whatever vaccinations are required before you go over. You do not want to be sick over there. Sometimes the healthcare is good, but oftentimes it's not. And if you're in a remote location, it may be a while till you can get get care. So again, it depends on the environment that you're working for, but I would make sure that any contract includes some description of, or some, at least some understanding and an awareness. You know, when I travel, we have to go through a security check every time so that we know what to do if something happens, if there's a terrorist act, or if there's you know, a kidnapping, or if there's, you know, there's all kinds of things that can happen depending.
We don't want to scare you, but we have to be careful, right? I know all the security things
I
and the
felt pretty safe overseas, honestly. Like in every country I've lived in, I felt really safe. I mean, in Istanbul, some of the guys are a bit dodgy, but other than that, it's fine. And then when I travel like all throughout Southeast Asia and like Northern Africa through Europe, like I've never really felt anything that like I wouldn't back home. I think people have a lot of fear when they go overseas. They think like suddenly like they're all going to be kidnapped, but that is like specific places. Just like in the US, you would be careful about going to certain neighborhoods. It's the same thing when you're abroad. So just have common sense like when you make your decisions about where to go, and you'll be fine.
right.
And I can just speak to specifically Peace Corps experience. Like I felt so taken care of during my Peace Corps experience, health-wise, security-wise. We had regional folks that were like the safety and security. There's a bunch of acronyms. I can't remember them now, but we had safety and security officers. And then we also had volunteers that would volunteer within regions to be the contact. So if there was ever an evacuation that was like not COVID related, there was a president election during my time over there, and there were some rallies and things, so they would keep us informed. Just always having a emergency action plan, whether it be for your type of housing. Like I know I had some funky locks that I would have to like stick my arm in and like put a key up, and I could easily like drop my key down below. Just making sure that you've got also a friend that can also help you out in time of need, either with communication plans or even just locally there that you can count on too. But yeah, like I think Linda had said, things also happen here in the US. So gun worries were the very least of my worries over in Uganda. They don't have guns for anyone other than police officers, but there was one kidnapping that happened and it made news, and I was able to like show my family, like, let's look at your local news, what's happening over there. It's not that bad over here.
Well, I think I can add to this question. Maybe as a student, we can try out our the international experience by participating in some of the school-led or some big organizations activities, overseas activities like School of Education and other schools. They usually have this programs that can send you to other countries during the summer, or like a short-term visiting programs. It will be a great opportunities for us to see whether we are comfortable with living in another country. I did this when I was in the third year of my college. I went to UK, and that's how I decide that I want to go out and see the world. So yeah, look out for these opportunities, right? Yeah, I
Well, the
think
other one is like sometimes like just go to the country like with like when I went to Istanbul, I got a job in an ESL center because there weren't any good jobs coming up that year. And then I just found a job at a real school once I got there. So it's like if you're already in the country, sometimes that makes you more marketable too. So that's a tricky thing. Like if you're young and you can do that, like just go, like just go where you want to be and you'll find something, and it doesn't matter because like you're young and carefree and whatnot. So like I would say take advantage of your youth and just like go explore.
yes, go explore, go and be just go out and look for the opportunities that can sponsor you to work outside. Like if you look at School of Education website and or the Office of International Students Services website, there will be some programs or job opportunities for international career. These are the school resources are very useful for us students just to get the starting your international career. It's 10 o'clock, and if you have more questions you want to ask our alumni or to ask a career connection specialist, you can always send the question to us. So my email is in, I'll type it in the chat. So you can send your question to this email and I'll forward your questions to our guests, and let's keep in touch in future. With this webinar will also be uploaded to our YouTube channel, and if you want to watch the recording you can go there. We upload it by today, I promise. We thank you for everyone for participating in this webinar today, and thank you our great guest. I hope you all enjoyed this morning with us, and I hope you have a great day. Enjoy the summer. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you.